was I wanted to see what Stix has to say, because I guess this is his final review of should you actually play in 2023. I'm 95% sure he's going to say nothing but positive things, and he's going to love this game more than life itself. That is just my guess, though.
Tower Fantasy is a beautiful free-to-play open-world.
All right, that's all we need to know. Fuck yeah. 10 out of 10.
Action MMORPG developed by Hada Studio, a subsidiary of Perfect
I
World,
thought it was Hoda.
and published globally on PC and mobile by Level Infinite. The game launches onto the PlayStation platform on August 8th, with Level Infinite being replaced as publisher for Perfect World Games. Due to two separate studios publishing each respective version, there will be no crossplay functionality, requiring anyone wanting to play on the PS4 or the PS5 to start the game from scratch. And despite a lot of confusion over the game's business model on console, with pre-order packages being displayed for interested players, Tower Fantasy will remain 100% free to play across every platform. Before launching globally, Tower Fantasy was riddled with hackers, exploiters, and abusers that often took advantage of known duplication bugs. They had plagiarized Honkai Impact, pretended like it was an accident, plagiarized another creator's trailer, pretended like that was another accident, and overall showed a severe lack of competence and humility. Then, the game launched globally, and saw the exact same hacks, exploits, and duplication abuse replicated. These were all issues that had long since been fixed in the Chinese version, but the studio was too lazy to apply the necessary fixes to the global incarnation of the game in preparation of this happening. Negligence or incompetence? Probably both. Nevertheless, this was all fixed in subsequent patches. That admittedly took an egregious amount of time to roll out, but by then the damage was already done. Tower Fantasy had established itself amongst both the gacha and MMO communities as a running meme. Slowly, over time, this has changed. Significant improvements were made, and the game is in a much better state than it has ever been in. And as 3.0 just launched recently, I felt like it was my responsibility to spend roughly the last month playing through the game to document how large a distance this game has come since it launched.
Okay.
Tower Fantasy is a beautiful game. Running around, exploring Asperia back in 1.0 was more fun than I'd had in a while. Seeing the futuristic city of Miroria, Inars, the underwater region, and most recently Domain 9 has been nothing but an absolute aesthetic pleasure for my eyes. The devs have crafted a world that has gotten progressively more detailed and much more grandiose with every major patch. Seeing the enormous peaks enshrouded by the clouds, airships, floating archipelagos, Asian-inspired towns. Comparatively to 1.0, 3.0 is a completely different game with a whole another feel. Unfortunately, 3.0 is still plagued by the very same issues that it had in both 1.0 and 2.0. The world, despite feeling full of life with NPCs, monsters, and a surplus of lootable items, felt arid, sterile, desolate. There just wasn't really much to do. I love exploring new worlds, and with the exception of some chests that offer you some basic items or XP as a reward, I never felt like I really had anything to do. I wasn't missing out on anything. And
wait, what?
Don't even get me started on 3.0's gameplay loop. 1.0 was known to employ an egregious time gate on everything.
I don't know what he means by, like, there's nothing to do. I mean,
looting items out in the world, story progression. There were times where you'd have to wait 84 hours before you could unlock an item out in the world. If you play during 1.0, you probably still have a little pent-up hatred for the game due to that. 3.0, however, does not have time gating. Well, not in the same way exactly. When entering Domain 9, you're introduced to a new mechanic in the form of vermilion statues. These are scattered throughout the region and directly affect your damage versus monsters out in the world, while providing other beneficial effects. The damage boost specifically is amplified by various astral monuments you find out while exploring, extending the buffs received via statues to the immediate area. Astral monuments are locked behind the level of each vermilion statue, and vermilion statue levels are locked by the number of little purple energy balls that you accumulate out in the world. However, the little energy balls are limited and respawn weekly, meaning that there is a finite number of balls obtainable weekly, locking the amount of unlocking and upgrading you can do each respective week. I understand having this system in place, as it's something for players to work towards. It is a goal, but it is still a form of time gaining. You cannot...
I mean, it gives you something to do each week and on a daily basis, and you also get them from chests. Like, it's from... I think if you sweep the entire map, you know, for the first time, you should be able to get all of the monuments to at least, like, level 3 or 4. Or just completely max out one of them. I'm pretty sure that's what I did.
Not level your statues without
it's really not that hard.
You cannot obtain without unlocking the astral monuments, which are only unlockable by leveling your statues.
I didn't really find it, like, annoying.
Gaining. Being required to log in weekly and run through the exact same route, re-obtaining balls I've obtained every other week, is one of the most boring gameplay loops that I've had to sit through in over a decade. What I don't find boring, however, is covering gacha games like this every single week in my Player Pass series, something that you should totally go on over and check out if you enjoy this video. Something I do genuinely think has improved quite significantly over the course of each respective patch is the narrative. 1.0 was such a disjointed,
I wouldn't call the devs
storytelling.
sleazy. I would just say, if anything,
few
upon release, they were just
attention
lazy.
to the story originally, and even fewer who made full sense of it. The story was all over the place. The voice acting was atrocious.
We were naive enough to think that we'd have a better future. That was a terrible mistake.
Well, when the voice acting was present, a bug that remains to this day pertains to the absence of entire voice lines. A year later, they still haven't patched in the missing audio from voice-acted cutscenes.
I mean,
2.0
I
had
guess.
a much more structured
what game
story.
doesn't
It was
copy
boring, but it
from
had
other
structure
games?
to it. Everything
Like,
followed a linear
I'm
path
somewhat
and made
over
sense.
the-
Slowly, you were
the whole
introduced to
copying
characters that had some personality, that had a direct impact on the game overall. Like Rubelia, she had two very large impact on my game. 3.0 continued this upwards trend of better storytelling, and while there was maybe an hour or two of voice acting and story overall, it was a marked improvement over both 1.0 and 2.0. I spent 2 streams watching the story with thousands of people, and we all came to the conclusion that overall, not only did the pacing seem significantly better, but the voice acting was also an exponential improvement.
Yes.
The voice actors of
the voice actors of Asperia was pretty fucking bad. They have made amazing improvements though.
Master Yu and Yulan, Eula and Hu Tao in Genshin Impact did an incredible job showcasing the stark differences
Asperia
between
was pretty
1.0
cringe.
and 3.0's vocal direction. The combat in Tower of Fantasy has always been pretty exceptional for an anime MMO, a gacha game, or a game that is cross-platform compatible with mobile.
And honestly, I feel like so many people are sleeping on the combat. Like, I mean, it's so insanely diverse because they're not constricted by weapon types. And it's ridiculous. Like, each character has, like, such a specific type of playstyle. Like, I really like it.
Devices. But newer characters, simulacrums, make older weapons, as characters in this game take the form of weapons, equipable and upgradable, seem irrelevant. The speed, the fluidity, the damage of any other weapon I had equipped to the ninja-like acrobatic fist fighter that is Yulan was incomparable. I moved through the air almost seamlessly, with each punch looking and feeling impactful, something that other weapons just didn't seem to feature. And don't get me started on how much better the characters look in more recent patches. Seriously, just take a moment here and appreciate Fiona, Lon, Rubelia, Yulan.
Lil Ho.
Seriously, if these characters were present at launch, I guarantee you this game would have held a significantly larger portion of players and made several times what it did in its launch month. While I think the combat is indeed very good, it's also pretty basic, which isn't a detriment, but rather a strength. Having each weapon feature a basic combat style, a unique special ability, and then an ultimate ability means you have roughly 9 skills to use. Any more than that, and you'd feel a little overwhelmed in a game like this. And I honestly don't think there'd be enough room on screen for any more. Speaking of your character and simulacrums, Tower of Fantasy features quite the robust character creator.
Well, and see, he also didn't mention, and which, you know, he might have just not looked, but TOF does update their old characters. Like, so far they've done it. they made one huge increase in 3.0 where they updated all of their old characters. I mean, they're not going to be better than the new characters, but I would rather the new characters be better than the old ones, as opposed to them being either slightly worse or just absolute dog shit. I mean, they are very significantly better, but again, with the constant updates to the old characters, I think they're going to do a pretty good job about keeping old characters relevant. And on top of that, they add them to the standard banner, which is insanely awesome for new players. And then another thing that, again, I don't know if he's going to mention this later, but in terms of even if you're free to play, you stick with one element, right? So by the time your element comes back around on the banner, because it always has the exact same pattern of, I think it's like Volt, Fire, Ice, whatever. By the time the next Frost character comes out, if you're a Frost main, you should have enough wishes to get it, even if you're free to play, most likely. So, I mean, I don't know. Aren't viable to run in comps compared to older limited counters as well. Matters on the top. Take a look. She got phase out so fast she's gonna play that. First one's better. I mean, I still use Lynn. I love using Lynn. Because the thing that makes her viable still for me is her her ability to reset Volt dodge attacks, which insanely helps with Fenrir. I mean, I'm sure the damage will probably be higher if once I C6 or A6 Fiona, but I don't know. I still think that if you have her at A6, okay, I guess that's fair. Okay, yeah, all right, that's fair. Fair point, Leo.
Allowing you to design your own character and play as them.
I also have her maxed out matricy set, so that also kind of helps. Okay, I'm done.
If you desire. Alternatively, if you're like the 90%.
Okay, and another thing with the character design, he might mention this, but the fact that you can get unlockable cosmetics from constantly fighting world bosses will always give you something to do. And again, I think that's another aspect that is very slept on.
Percent of the player base, you'll opt for whichever husband or wife who you think is the hottest and just go with them. But your character is
because again, like, the point is that there's always something that you could be working towards. Like, you're never going to be sitting there in the game just like, oh, well, what? I guess I can't play the game anymore because I'm out of resin or I'm out of whatever they call it. But, like, there's always something to do. They have fishing that hardly anyone does, more racing. Yeah, like, they have so many things that almost no one even touches. And that's how much content is in the game. Most people, yeah, I mean, most people don't do it, but I mean, the point is that there's so much to do that you're never not going to have something that you could be doing. And it's not like you don't do it just to waste time. You do it to like unlock other things. Like if you want to do fishing, then if you max that out, then you get a free gold matricy every single week. So it's not for nothing. Like, you're not grinding for nothing.
The main part of every cutscene and story element.
Or wasting time for nothing.
Something that very few gacha games seem to incorporate into their games. I'm not entirely sure why. So players can RP their own responses? I don't know. I appreciate my character having a personality in this game. And while I've covered what I think of the basics, there is still a lot more to the game than this. Before we discuss those, however, I want to take a moment here to thank our incredible patrons for killing a few monsters. There are daily bounties to pursue each day. These involve typically killing a few monsters in a region of your choice. Casual content like fishing or racing. Instance ruins, which are kind of like solo dungeons featuring several rooms with either puzzles or monster encounters, Mia's kitchen providing you a daily buff and some additional XP. World exploration is, well, fairly self-explanatory. Joint operations cost quite a large amount of stamina, but reward you with some pretty sick items. Shame I could never obtain any footage of it because nobody ever seemed to be queuing for it, and when searching for a team, they were always empty. Dimensional trials are how you go about obtaining items to upgrade gear, weapons.
At most, it takes me like 2 minutes to match. I don't know what the fuck he's doing.
And matrices. These are all.
Oh, you know what? It's because he's not max level, so there's almost like no one on the lower levels. That I guarantee you that's why.
Integral to growing more powerful and.
Because once you get to the most recent 5 levels, then that's pretty much where everyone is at, and you're never gonna have an issue matching.
Tackling more difficult content. The Bygone Phantasm is essentially just waves of enemies that you tackle solo. The wormhole was really, really boring, and admittedly, I completely avoided that after my first time. Frontier Clash is where you group up with 3 other players and set yourself to auto while you AFK for 10 minutes doing something else. The Origin of War was a catastrophic experience for me. I attempted it solo, even though it recommends group play.
Okay. Well, first of all, with the Frontier Clash, the only way that you can just auto that is if you have a Giga Whale in there. Otherwise, you have to stay active or else you're going to die. And in Origin of War, it is pretty hilarious that he attempted that on his own because of how fucking hard it is. Like, if you do not go in there with a full team, you will not clear a single level. Maybe once you have max stats, then you could clear like 1 or 2 levels on your own, but yeah, no, like it.
And admittedly ended up being.
And again, this isn't a solo this isn't a solo game in terms of a lot of the game modes. Like, they want you to play with other people. So that's why Origin is important, because even if you're a whale, you still need free to play to either tank or heal, or else you're still going to lose.
Relatively humbled. Queuing for matchmaking resulted in nothing, and there were never really any pre-made teams. This is one of the major issues that you encounter when attempting to play games with regularly declining populations. Doing cooperative content is always increasingly, alarmingly difficult. The Void Rift was kind of fun. You go with 3 other players, you all search for keys to open the room to the boss and hope he's not dead before you load in. I encountered the same issue with raiding. No teams, no queues. I'm assuming guilds don't have much trouble filling positions.
See, another thing that he doesn't understand is that people don't random, like, you don't random queue. You always put it into world chat and you say, hey, I'm starting a raid group, or hey, can someone help me with Origin? I don't think he paid attention to that and knows that that's how everyone does it, and that's why no one really rando queues. But again, like, it's never, yeah, like okay, I'll rephrase that. He obviously didn't do any of that, and he's trying to random queue, but no one does that in TOF. You always just put it into world chat saying, hey, I'm starting a join ops group for this, or hey, I'm having trouble clearing this, can anyone come and help me? People join immediately. Like, I've never had anyone not join, especially after the server merge.
But for someone like me who likes to go it solo, I tried over several days to find
Alright, well, you're playing a team game, bud.
A group to no avail. I did a match in the arena and realized that it was just as broken as ever and immediately proceeded to avoid it. PvP in gacha games has always and likely will always remain an abhorrent, unbalanced joke. To be competitive in any of the above content, you're going to want to level, gear yourself, upgrade your gear, equip yourself with meta simulacrum, matrices, all of which cost money for the most part.
Okay. God damn it. Alright, so obviously, again, he didn't actually play it, or he didn't read the descriptions. As long as you have one copy of the character, not saying that the PvP isn't stupid as hell, because some stupid stuff can happen, but they made it as balanced as they could. As long as you have one copy of the character, you have max, right? And on top of that, they don't count your gear, and they don't count your matrixy set, and they don't count your simulacrum awakening effect. As long as you have one copy, you start at the exact same level as your opponent. No unfair advantage. Sure, you could say, oh, you still have to pull for at least one copy of the character. Yeah, sorry. But they already said that they're going to come out with an updated PvP where they're going to give you a list of weapons to choose from. Both you and your opponent, you get to choose which weapon you want, whether you have it or not, and then you get to also outlaw certain weapons. So they're fixing their PvP. And even as it stands right now, it's not like a whale only territory. It really comes down to, do you have one copy of the character? Great. Use it in PvP. And I mean, it's really not that
or
crazy
if you're
unbalanced.
Exceptionally lucky, you might manage as a free player. Gear is obtained via a number of ways and is upgradable.
I mean, I'm going
increasing
to
your
post this
combat
to
power.
YouTube.
Weapons are obtained via the gacha system and are upgradable through various resources you can grind, increasing your combat power. You can advance your weapons. As an example, I have Venus upgraded to 6-star, increasing your combat power. Each weapon can have 4 matrices equipped. Matrices function like gear for your weapons and provide various statistical bonuses, increasing your combat power. They're also upgradable through resources that you can grind, increasing your combat power. There's the new Smart Servant, which functions as an aid in battle with their own stats and abilities. It has several skins as well to alter its appearance. You have relics, some of which are combat.
Alter its appearance and also alter its different types of attacks, but that's something small.
Some of which help you navigate the world, like the Mini Pelican, which boosts your movement underwater, or the Speed Walkers, which let you run up walls like in Wuthering Waves. These are also upgradable, and when upgraded provide additional benefits, some direct, some passive. There are ground and underwater mounts. Ground mounts allow you to move faster above water, and admittedly I'm assuming the opposite holds true for underwater mounts, but I never obtained one. Mounts are also upgradable and levelable. It's a safe bet to assume at this point that everything is upgradable and most things increase your combat power. You have a suppressor which directly boosts your base stats. You want to focus on upgrading this as often as possible, but it is gated behind combat power and Omnium Crystal requirements. There's a mentor system in game, but this is an MMO. Everyone knows you don't play MMOs to play with other people. So this is more or less irrelevant. It doesn't really serve much purpose. And for people about to take...
Wait. You don't play MMOs to play with other people?
That out of context, that was a joke. Which leaves the gacha and in-game store.
Thank God.
Yes, there's a monthly pass, and I purchased
okay,
it.
I was about to
really
say, like...
different to what you find in
what?
other games. The gacha isn't bad in Tower Fantasy. Pity is 80, with Pity not resetting after obtaining a max rarity SSR hero, meaning you can obtain 3 SSR heroes before hitting Pity. The same applies to the Matrix gacha. Honestly, I wish other gacha games took inspiration from this and functioned the same way, but that would be less lucrative financially. The store is pretty basic. You have an exorbitant amount of different currencies that you accumulate over time that you can use to purchase new weapons, gear, upgrade materials. I actually managed to max my Nemesis via the shop and purchase Yulan after failing Pity.
Yes, so he didn't mention this, but also they do help free-to-play players so much because they add that mentorship thing. They reward whales for playing with new players, and they reward new players getting mentored by the whales. And but what I was going to say with that weapon thing, after a character has a rerun 3 times, they get added to the standard banner, unless it's an aberrant character. So that's, again, like just another way to help out like new free-to-play players.
Overall, I think Personally, Tower of Fantasy is probably in the best state it has ever been in. 3.0 is a significant improvement over 1.0 and a solid improvement over 2.0. If this game released in the form 3.0 is taken, I have no doubt in my mind that it would have been an overwhelming, resounding success. Well, the power creep would have inhibited its success, but if they'd worked on that as well, I genuinely think this could have been a very good game. Like it is.
I don't know. I really don't think that power creep is that insane of a barrier. I mean, I see how it can definitely turn players off, but again, you stick with one element, so by the time that your element reruns, you'll be fine. But it's better than going the Genshin route of just making every new character complete dog shit. So
slowly become. I'm of the belief that the studio behind Tower of Fantasy is largely incompetent.
A6.
They've proven this time and time again, and current earnings being at their lowest point since it launched is proof of that. $1 million earned via mobile this month, disregarding PC, down from last month, which was down from the month before that.
Hey, I'm doing my part to give all of my money to Hoda.
And has declined every single month this year. With a decline in active players so drastic, they've had to do repeated server merges to try and keep remaining servers alive. This
I mean, I think that's definitely part of why they're doing the server merges, but I think they also did server merges is so they could just improve the game overall, because the fact that there were way too many servers was stupid, and I think they were just fixing that.
Is such a wasted potential. Such a gorgeous game with great combat and an expansive world to wander, and the PlayStation release could have bolstered those numbers, but instead they opted to fracture the community further.
Yes, okay. the PS4 release, I don't know why Hoda cannot have a good release. They just, something about releasing something for, like, I don't get why they can't do it. They can just walk over the line and score, but they fumble.
By segregating them, further showing how detached from reality these devs are. Is Tower of Fantasy worth playing in 2023? Yes and no. To some people, definitely. To others, not a chance. Don't let people tell you whether something is or is not worth playing. Go download it and try it for yourself. My taste won't align with everyone's and probably differ to certain extents from your own.
Grow some balls, take a stance. Yes, it's worth playing. It's worth trying. I'll say that. It is worth trying.
With this in mind, if you're looking...
Like, I think it's dumb to say, no, it's not worth trying for some players. No. You have to try it.
Looking for something to play that is not Tower of Fantasy, try checking out one of these two videos on screen right now. They will not disappoint. And if they
Alright. I mean, it seems like he did put a lot of hours into the game, but he left out a lot of very important information in it. Let me see what the comments say. And have observed the changes made and was very satisfied. All they had to do is make their characters more relatable and clean voiceover. Okay. Sown to the gutters by the devs. It says shutting down. Now I'll definitely give it a try. Okay. Yes, so they're having this first anniversary event thing right now, and there's already well over like 2 million signups. So I don't know. Play at launch was hoping this game was a lot better. It kind of seems like the majority of these people are just thinking, okay, we'll give it another try, which is good. And again, I I think Tower of Fantasy is a game. It's a game that gets more fun the more you play it, whereas a game like Genshin gets worse the more you play it. And so it's going to take some time, but I think overall, even brand new players are going to have an absolute blast, especially with like all these new areas, all these new characters. I mean, it seems like people are pretty stoked for it. So, all right. Well, that is the end of that reaction. So, I'm still going to be coming out with my own video over all the different pros, all the different cons, and I'm going to try to actually talk about all of these different good things and bad things in better detail than this video did. But it's mainly because I've been playing since the literal day one, so I am privy to a lot more knowledge about it. So I think that might help some people out. But we'll see. All right, whatever time it is for you, have a good morning, good afternoon, or good night, and thank you so much for watching on YouTube, and I'll catch you later. Bye-bye!